Morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. There's a lot of material that we want to cover. First of all, welcome to our first in-person, finally, provider meeting. So we are happy to have you all here. My name is Sandra Barrera. I am the Deputy Director for the Workforce Solutions for South Texas. And again, we welcome you to this facility, your facility. And it's really nice to have the first one in person after all this time. So we wanted to do a little bit something different. We know that you haven't met a lot of us and we do have a lot of new staff. So first I want to introduce the board staff people, which we have Ms. Bertha Millan right here.
Good morning, everybody. Bertha Millan, Corporate Development Supervisor.
And go ahead.
Sandra Barrera, Contract Manager for the board.
Some of you might have spoken with Lynette. She is not in this week. Her son is graduating from the Marines. So we gave her a pass and said she could go ahead and go. All right. I'm going Pati, ¿te puedes presentar?
Hola, buenos días a todos. Mi nombre es Patricia Barrera. I'm the Project Director here for the Workforce Solutions. And welcome, everyone.
Well, before anything, we want to give a big welcome home, welcome back to somebody that all of you are very familiar with, Ms. Noemi Pedroza. So welcome, Noemi. So it's nice to have her back with us, a friendly face, and a lot of people with you all are familiar. And so we're going to be introducing the departments. Okay, I'm going to pass it on to Ms. Noemi so she can go ahead and introduce your staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barrera. And thank you, everybody. It's nice to see a lot of familiar faces and new faces. I'm going to go ahead and start introducing the staff. We have first Ms. Priscilla Rios. She is our CDS, your CDS.
CDS, most of you know my voice through the phone, right? But yes, welcome everybody.
Okay, next we have the team from the program clerks. They are our gatekeepers. You want to come in, program clerks?
Good morning,
Good
everybody.
morning. Introduce yourself, please.
Good morning, every one of you. My name is Bertha Millan, and I am a program clerk.
Thank you. Next, we have the FMS department.
Good morning, everyone. Patricia Barrera. Ms. Millan, as most of you know me, and I am the financial management specialist.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sandra Barrera, and I am part of FMS as well.
The next group we have is our eligibility specialist.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ana Redondo, and I'm an eligibility specialist.
I'm an eligibility specialist, and I think I've spoken to some of you already.
Sandra Barrera, and I'm an eligibility specialist.
My name is Sonia Redondo, and I'm an eligibility specialist.
Good morning. My name is Sandra Rios, and I'm a TRS mentor assessor.
Good morning, I'm Maria Beltran, and I'm one of the mentor assessors for TRS.
Good morning. I'm Sally Cavazos. I'm a TRS mentor assessor. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sandra Barrera. I'm the Quality Assurance Manager for CCS and the one-stop programs here at Workforce Solutions. And my team consists of 4 individuals. Currently, we have 3 for CCS. Good morning, Adriana Villarreal, Quality Control. Good morning, Response Control. And that's Quality Control.
Thank you for that, guys. So that is your team, your childcare team, ready to always answer your calls, clear up and getting clarifications that you may need. Okay, thank you, guys. The next item on the agenda is gonna be our customer service. So we listed the ways that we can, you can contact childcare whenever you have any questions, concerns, and clarifications. The first one, of course, you can call our direct line, our phone number, our 794-1500. The second one is our email address, and that is ccs@southtexasworkforce.org. If you have any provider-related questions, specifically, that is going to be to your CDS Priscilla, and that's priscilla.rios@southtexasworkforce.org. If you have Texas Rising Star questions and inquiries, that would be Texas Rising Star, STX@southtexasworkforce.org. And we've also included the link for the jot forms that we use to report the absences. So the next item on our agenda is our provider update. But before we pass the mic on to Priscilla, we just want to remind everyone that we have open enrollment right now. So if you have any parents who are paying private and you think that may qualify for childcare services, go ahead and refer them to our website. They can apply online. They can come to the office. They can apply on paper. So we can get their eligibility assessed. Do you have any questions on open enrollment? The next item is going to be the one-time retention incentives, and Ms. Millan will be presenting that item.
There, it looks like it's picking up.
It was working fine before you all got.
There it is. It's your,
The incentive, yeah.
this one, right?
Yes. You're gonna be your clicker?
Yeah. Yeah. probably. Got it? Yeah. There. Is it up? There. it is. Okay, you tell me when to click.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me well? Okay. We did receive some funding. Next slide, please. We did receive some funding in 2021 to do some support activities for Texas Rising Star providers. As you know, everybody is expected to become Texas Rising Star provider by September of next year. So in preparation for that, there was some money set aside to be able to promote some of these activities. This slide is showing you a little bit of the background information of what activities South Texas decided to sponsor. And basically, it was, training for professional development, some curriculum to assist the providers who were interested in becoming TRS, or the ones who were already TRS and needed to upgrade their curriculum. Some of those activities were then sponsored. The most important or the one that I'm presenting today is the last bullet, which is the one-time incentive for job retention. So as the pandemic hit, some of you were highly affected by attrition. We started losing staff. It was hard to recuperate some of those positions. So in an effort to ensure that as the pandemic was kind of phasing out, that you were able to retain some of these persons, we decided to set aside money for those incentives. So we divided the funding because, there's a limited pool of money set aside. We were able to do 2 cohorts, and we started last year. The first cohort, it would be the next slide. The first cohort, we identified 24 eligible Texas Rising Star certified providers that met the criteria listed on the screen. Providers must have been certified by August 31st, 2022. And then for the teachers that you were going to be nominating for these incentives, they had to be employed for at least 6 consecutive months. And we provided you with a scope from September through March
of 2022. No, I'm sorry, September through August of 2022 was the scope that we were looking for that cohort of incentives. The next slide. The second cohort is about to begin. We already identified the providers that are now meeting the new category. The criteria is going to be basically the same, that you must have obtained TRS certification as of February 28th, 2023. And the scope, because it's only a one-time incentive, would be applicable for providers who became TRS certified between September of 2022 and February of 2023. Like I said, we identified so far 15 providers who meet that criteria. And for your teachers, the ones that you're going to be nominating, they have to be employed with you for at least the past 6 consecutive months. And of course, they must be employed at the time that you disperse or pay the incentive. Next slide. Now, the nitty-gritty. To apply for the incentive, we are asking that if you are one of those providers that became TRS certified during the scope provided, that you submit the following documents to the TRS team by March the 10th. The list of eligible teachers and or teacher assistants that meet, the 6-month employment with you. Along with that, a list of individuals you need to submit supporting documentation, such as maybe timesheets, pay stubs, some payroll history or ledgers to show that those individuals were active in your payroll. And of course, the signed certification statement. Next slide. The certification statement is just a simple form that states that you understand the requirements to apply for this incentive, that you understand it's a one-time, and that you must pay this incentive to those individuals that you selected or that you know meet your criteria. The way this works is Workforce Solutions pays the employer, in this case the facility, the daycare, and then you all are responsible for disbursing that to your employees. It's a very simple form. Next slide. With that said, we anticipate, or Workforce Solutions Board anticipates to be disbursing the incentives once we receive all the documentation from you and we review it, we evaluate it, we see that everybody meets the requirements, we do the final approval, and then our anticipated date of disbursing the funding is going to be by March 31st of this year. So you submit everything by the 10th, we start reviewing as soon as we receive, and then you can expect the funds to be deposited into your accounts by March 31st, 2023. Then in return, we're asking that you pay your employees, the ones that you selected in your list. We ask that you pay them no later than April 19th. So you pay, and then you need to send your proof of payment to the Workforce Solutions Board office, because we need to make sure that the funds have been dispersed to the right people that you selected and that we already have on file. So along with your payment proof, you need to add a copy of a check or voided voucher if you pay through ACH, and it must be signed by the recipient. Like it's, if you gave them a check, please make a copy and have the recipient sign it and date it. And the same if you need to print your voucher, the same. We would require those signatures. If the signatures are not there, we are not going to be honoring that disbursement. All the disbursements have to have a proof of payment. And that information is going to be due by April 20th, which is the day after you disburse to your employees. That is going to be due to Mrs. Hogan, our accountant in the board office. Now, we have a little note in the middle of the PowerPoint, because as we were working through the first cohort, we had some questions related to tax. And we're just doing a little disclaimer here, you know, if you have any tax questions related to how you're paying to your staff, please contact your accountants or your financial advisors. We're not, we don't know how your business runs, so it's best if we do not give you any information on that. Next slide. Okay, and that's the end of the presentation. Basically, if you have more questions or need more information, you can contact Ms. Pedroza here at the CCS office, or you can contact the board office, and that would be Mrs. Hogan. Her information is on the screen. She's not here today, but you can email her or call her, and she can answer questions. Now, does anybody have any questions related to this round of incentives? Maybe some of you who were certified within those timeframes that might have a question right now. Yes, Anna.
Where can we get the forms so we can submit it?
Okay, these forms are gonna be distributed by our TRS team. Is somebody? Yes, Ms. Gaitan, who would be the lead on this one?
Well, it will be Ms. Gaitan, Ms. Rios, and Ms. Cavazos. And since you already know who were certified within that period of time, you will receive that information through your email. By hopefully, if the forms are ready with us, hopefully by Monday, so that you can start working on the paperwork or documentation that you need to have.
Okay, so Ms. Gaitan and the TRS team will be sending you the certification form so you can sign it. They will release that information by Monday. And then the expectation is that you submit your list of potential candidates or eligible candidates along with your supporting documentation and the signed certification statement by Friday the 10th to the board office. Ms. Gaitan, to the board office or to you all? Are you gonna be collecting this?
Well, I know Priscilla Rios had mentioned the maybe to the board office. That way it's quicker, because last time you sent to us and then it was just to you. I don't know how you would want that.
I think it's gonna come to you all, because we said TRS team. Yeah, so the TRS team will be collecting the information, and then they will be forwarding that to the board office, and then we will start evaluating. Any other questions?
I'm gonna add a comment. We're not going to be accepting anything that is just handwritten, that you gave the disbursement. We need ledgers that come from your actual system, or the checks themselves, the copies of the checks. With the first cohort, we did have some issues with just wanting to submit like a paper form, and that's not going to be accepted. So we want to let you know in advance to make sure that you do send us the correct documents as proof of payment, along with the recipient's signature that they have already received the payment. Any questions?
Okay, so if you don't have any more questions, I'm gonna be here. If at the end you have any questions related to this, feel free to ask, or you can contact the individuals that were listed in the PowerPoint, so you can find out more information. If nothing else, you can always contact your TRS team, and they can also assist you with the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mia. Okay, so now we're gonna start going into the nitty gritty. We're not gonna go over the provider agreement. We're gonna go ahead and put it up on the screen. And we need for you to let us know if you have any questions related to the provider agreement. So the first part has your demographics, and then it's got your acknowledgements, your eligibility, the payments, holidays, emergency closures, parent share of costs. Difference, any additional fees that your centers may have. Reporting requirements, that you will go over and during our handbook presentation. Changes that need to be reported. Texas Star, Rankin Star requirements, federal requirements, of course. Termination of agreement, reasons for terminating an agreement. Then go to the service improvement agreement. Board corrective action. And then of course at the end, the provider acknowledgement and that you sign off with your partners. Do we have any questions in relation to the provider agreement?
Just, I'm going to suggest that maybe you can mail us the PowerPoint presentation. Maybe we need to refer back to it.
So you have a, you have a copy of it
It's only of
on the PowerPoint, which
not that one.
Oh, the provider agreement.
Y'all have signed up, everybody has already signed their provider agreement, but yes, we have a, but we can share some of the.
And not only this, but the entire one, the one with the.
Right. We will go ahead and email you the presentation so that you can have them as reference.
Any other questions?
This is the provider.
Yes, that's what, yes, this is what we're
well,
gonna go
that's
over.
the PowerPoint. The provider handbook will be giving it at the end of the.
Oh, okay.
So then I'm gonna go ahead and hand over the mic to Ms. Priscilla Rios, who's sitting here. She can go over the presentation.
Within your agreement, there's also a section there that references the handbook, which you have acknowledged already that you will abide by, and that's what we're going to review now. So now it's going to be the actual handbook.
Okay, I promise I will try to talk fast. There is a lot of information and I am going to say it's kind of small because it does have a lot of information. But we didn't want to leave things out so that way, you know, you are well known with all the requirements. But you do have a copy and you can follow along with your copy just so you can see where we're at. Okay, so we're gonna start off, this is the chapters in the provider handbook, and you will receive it in the end of the presentation. We have the overview of the job roles, right? Of course, we've got the board, we've got the CPS staff, and then you as a provider, becoming a contractor provider, how do you become contracted, how to obtain childcare services, the way the process works, enrolling children with disabilities, determining payments, rates to providers for services. I know several have questions on the rates. Provider responsibilities and what you need to report, bidding and payment, and then corrective or adverse actions with providers, and then helping and monitoring providers. Okay, and then at the end, any questions that you might have. So just a quick summary of the board duties. I know they have many duties, but in a lump sum, they coordinate workforce training and services. They leverage private and public funds at the local level, fully integrate child care service for low-income families with a network of workforce training and services under board administration. They are child care contractors, or CCS, is the entity or entities under contract with the board to manage child care services, determining eligibility for child care services. Okay, they bill and reimburse process related to child care subsidies, fund quality and improvement activities. And then we have just some language of CCR is your child care regulation. They're the division responsible for protecting and the health, safety, and well-being of children who attend or reside in a regulated child care facility and home, now part of the Texas and Human Services.
And then, our childcare subsidies, those are the funds, childcare reimbursements to an eligible care provider for the direct care of an eligible child. Okay, so just so you're familiar with what child subsidy is, and CCR, I'm sure everybody knows. Okay, so we're going to, the staff. The child development specialist, that's me, offers program support to providers. So I think I've spoken to many of you already with any concerns or questions that you have. The intake program clerk, she ensures, or they ensure all customer documents are complete prior to processing. So they're the ones that take in all the documents of the parents. Eligibility specialist helps parents with enrollment and provides authorization of service to the centers. Direct quality control performs quality review on all cases and ensures eligibility determination is complete accurately, and they interpret child care policy and procedures and provide guidance to the child care staff. The financial management specialist, they process billing, attendance, and supplemental forms for our relative providers. TRS, assessors and mentors, they provide mentoring services to increase providers' educational quality of care. Child care manager, she works with all the departments, oversees the daily operations of all the child care service staff. The project director oversees the operations of the entire workforce system. Our quality initiatives director responsible for the planning, strategic management, and operations support of workforce and child care service. And then, of course, the providers to provide quality care for our children, right? That's the main goal that you all do. Okay, so the next slide is our overview of our laws. Laws and regulations and rules governing the child care contract system. All rules and policies and procedures contained in the child care service provider handbook are based on the TWC Child Care Service Guide. And there's the link for the guide if you all want to go back and reference the guide or see the guide. Funding for child care. Funding and state government funding is provided. Funding for subsidy child care service to eligible children. And some of these are the Choices Program, the TANF, SNAP, Low Income and Child Protective Service, foster children, as well as other projects. Provider meetings. So childcare provider meetings are once a month, or at least we try to have them once a month or as needed. We do give you important information, reminders, policies, procedures that is shared with you all with the providers. Staff will advise by contacting providers. We usually do it through constant contact or maybe an email, and we can have them either in person or virtual as we've had them in the past. So, becoming a contract provider. So what do you need to become a contract provider? Well, first of all, you need to have a license, either a license or be registered with child care regulations, right, which is now Texas Health and Human Service. And you do need to participate, very important, in the Texas Rising Star program. You also cannot be on an application status. You do have to have your after you already gotten your inspection, they give you an initial, that's when you can start having a contract with child care service. You cannot be on a corrective action or adverse action with child care regulations, right? Or the U.S. military service, or be debarred from any kind of federal agency. Or be in the denial of corrective action with child care. Okay. Number two, that you're abiding the terms of the provider agreement. One, you have to sign the provider agreement if you want to receive subsidies from us. Agree to abide by the terms of the child care provider agreement, and agree to follow procedures outlined in the child care provider handbook and guidelines established in the child care service guide, as well as other federal and state law and regulations. Okay, for the licensed centers, you do need to have a liability insurance of $300,000 or more for occurrence of commercial general liability insurance, and it needs to cover children in the facility, playground, and field trips. You do have to renew your liability insurance, of course, when it expires, and then you have to send us a copy. And then if you deplete the amount, before the time period, right, you have to renew it and again, provide us with a copy. Home-based providers are not required to have liability insurance, although you can have it, but you don't have it. Home-based, you don't.
Well, licensing does require.
They do, okay, well, I was told that you didn't have to, but I think they do give you the options, but I can check with, CCR just to.
No, they do, because I just got inspected and they asked me.
Oh,
they
so
have,
they
yes.
probably have changed their guidelines, but I can ask.
Before we did it, but now we do.
Oh, okay, so yeah, I think they probably just updated them, but thank you for letting me know so that I can also check with them. Advantages of being a CCS provider. Of course, we provide you technical assistance, access to our room, our resource room. We have a laminating machine. We've got some butcher paper that you all can come in and get, right, borrow. Direct payment, paid holidays. For those of you that are entry level, there is 9 paid holidays. Those that are TRS certified get 12 paid holidays. You have parents enrolling in your center. You get to participate with Texas Rising Star. You get provided trainings and informational meetings, right? Once a month. Okay, your provider agreements. Provider agreements are signed by you, the provider, and the child care contractor representative. They have basis for payments to provide for child care service rendered. They provide information needed by the child care contractor. They explain the providers what they must do. There are legal contracts. For those of you that are entry level, your contract will end in September 30th of 2024, and then we would renew you. Those that are currently TRS certified, your contract is good for 3 years. As long as, okay, there's that little insurance remains in effect, providers comply with the terms of the Child Care Provider Agreement Handbook, you maintain a professional attitude with referred clients, children, and contracted staff, and that you are not the subject of a corrective or adverse action with child care regulations or licensing. Okay. Having a provider agreement does not guarantee you that a provider will have children referred by the child care contractor. All referrals made by the child care contractor are based on parent choice. So we don't recommend to sign up for a certain daycare if it has to come from the parent. So we do provide them with a list. Okay, we do provide them with a list of providers' names, so that way they know, and they know the area. So by the time they let us know, they already know what daycare they want. Renewal of your provider agreement, becoming a contractor. Child care contractor staff will notify providers 30 days in advance that the renewal date is near. So before your contract is over, we'll reach out to you to let you know that you need to start submitting documents if you want to renew a contract, right? And you're in good standing. The provider agreements will be renewed if the provider again maintains a satisfactory compliance with licensing, meets the terms of the provider agreement, agrees to renew, right? At the end, if you want to renew, it's up to you. Maintains a professional attitude with the referred clients, children, and contractor providers and contracted staff. A termination of the provider agreement. The provider shall state in writing the reasons for termination 30 days in advance. And then any equipment that is issued out to you or that you borrowed, that would have to be returned as well within 30 days. Holidays, insurance, and amendments. All holidays must be submitted no later than December the 1st, right? To CDS, we do it by calendar year. I know most of you are used to doing school year, but you would have to turn in December. That way we have your holidays for the whole year. And then of course insurances, because they need to be renewed since they have an expiration date. New or amended provider agreements. All changes must be reported to the child care contractor in writing. And there's a chart, and you'll have it in your provider handbook. And it has the time frames of what you need to report and when. Okay, because they are different for anything, like you're changing director, you're changing your hours of operation, now you're opening, different days, different times. Just note that all that you do have to report it to licensing first, and then they make the change, and then you would let me know once they make the change, so that we can make the change on our end as well. Okay, so for any changes, if you're issued out a new number, license number, new provider agreement must be signed prior to transferring children to the license number. Okay, so sometimes because you added something or you're now, we went from home base to center, or whatever the reason that you need a new license, we do have to terminate the agreement that you currently have. We have to move those children, well, we have to get you on a new provider agreement and then move the children out of that center to the other one. Okay, so it is a process. Does anyone have any questions so far? Because I can talk and talk. No, everybody's okay?
Well, I have a question in reference to the holidays.
Yes.
We did submit them for the whole year, but in case there's a need to change, can you do it?
Yes, yes, you can. So you just send me an email, right? And I will put it in the form, and then I'll send it back to you so you can sign that you're acknowledging that there's a change. Okay, so renew the provider agreement, childcare contractor staff will notify the provider. Did I do it? Sorry. Okay, next one, parent contract with childcare service. So this is how to obtain childcare services. Parents are sometimes self-referred. They come because they need the services. Some of them are referred by Workforce Solutions in South Texas. Some are through the Child Protective Service. Others are by school districts, or like the colleges or the university, or other Head Start programs. So the parents come from different agencies and sometimes just themselves wanting child care service. Okay, a waiting list. So during closed enrollment, the waiting list is for parents who need and have applied for child care service. Waiting lists allow priority groups to be serviced correctly and to ensure the low-income parents are served in the order of application date. Okay. The enrollment process. So I think most of you are familiar with the process, but we have it here, so just you can know how it works. So child care contractor, we give the parents a list of contracted providers, right? We encourage the parents to visit your centers. We also tell them to contact the center, right, for availability, to check their policies. We tell the parents to obviously speak to you before, right? And then once they have their choice of daycare, then they'll contact us and let us know, okay, I already picked my daycare. And then from there, we start our process. So the child care service staff, once the parent has already their choice of daycare, they verbally give you an authorization, right, for start. And then they send the child care provider a 2450, right, with the enrollment authorization. And then if the child, this is very important, if the child has not attended your center from the enrollment on the third day of the initial start, you do need to let us know. So that way we can reach out to the parent and see what is going on with why haven't they shown up, or maybe they are chose another daycare and we didn't even know, but we won't know if you don't let us know. So we do need to know that they need to be reported, or not reported, but to tell us that, you know, if the child hasn't come by the third day and you've already received that authorization code, we need to reach out to the parent. Okay, very important. Child care staff as well as providers must respect clients' rights in regards to updates on when and how the process of parents' documentation is being handled. The only information given to the provider will be after the eligibility process has been complete. I know most of you call sometimes and ask for parents, you know, status. We can't give you the status. We do appreciate you calling, right, and asking. But we would once you reach out and ask, we will know the parent of what their status is. We can't give you that information just because of confidentiality. And but we do reach out to the parent and let them know, in that way they have an update with their case. Okay, but it is something that we do have to respect for them. Okay, still on how to obtain child care services. So the 2450s that you receive, they do have a start and end date. The amount of the parent fees assessed, so how much the parent is responsible for paying throughout the month or their eligibility period. The days and hours of authorized care. And they also have, it says, providers will not be reimbursed for any services provided before or after the start and end date indicated on the 2450. Okay, so very important to see when the child is supposed to start in your center, because you're only getting paid from the time that they're enrolled to the time, of course, that we give you the termination date. Child care referrals are site specific. If you have multiple sites, children must not be moved from one site to another, and reimbursement will not be made for child care provided at a site that is different from the site where it was authorized. Okay, so transferring of children within those that have multiple centers, or even if you just have one, we have a process. So you would have to let us know, right, that something is going on and that child can't be in that center, so that we can take action of our transfers. Okay, the provider must accept a child, and as a child care service, staff has called the provider to authorize enrollment. Okay, accepting children referred by child care service contractor. Providers should accept all children referred to them by child care contractor as long as, okay, children are within your age range that the provider is licensed to serve. The children are the age covered by the provider agreement. That does not, the provider does not put their capacity number over, right? Of course, because of licensing. The parent, or his or her spouse, including the child's parent or step parent, is not the director or assistant director or has ownership interest. That the licensed, registered, or licensed care home where the parent does not work during the hours his or her child is in care. Okay, so those are the reasons of how you can accept and shouldn't accept. Termination of enrollment. Child care providers are given a 2450 with a start and end date. Of course, you get a 2450 when they're ending the care. Providers must notify child care service when a parent informs the provider that the children will no longer attend within 24 hours. So from you knowing that the parent is telling you, I'm no longer coming as of today, reach out to us so that we can start the process of what we have to do, either termination of care, ending their referral, or whatever the case may be, right? But you do need to let us know, and you already have knowledge that they're not going, so that's something that needs to be told to us, CCS or CDS, right? And you can send that through email or give us a call so that way we can take action. Providers will not be reimbursed for days that the children are not authorized for care or after they have been notified by the parent or by the child care contractor that care is terminated. Okay, very important.
I have a question in reference. Can you go back to the other slide? In reference, or just explain to me a little bit, if the accepting children referral by the child services contractor, it says the licensed, registered, or licensed child care home where the parent does not work during the hours his or her child is in care. So you can accept a child with CCS as long as if we have an employee that has CCS. Does that mean that she cannot be working during the hours that her child is in the day?
So she can't be working in the same classroom where the child is, yes. Yeah, they can work at your
That's what
center.
I knew, but
Yes.
then I said, am I understanding?
Yes.
correctly?
Yeah, no, they can't be working and having services and be in the same classroom. Okay. Any other question? Yes. No? Okay. Okay, enrolling children with disabilities. So there is an Americans with Disability Act that protects, they have rights and protect them, right? It requires public accommodations including licensed centers, licensed childcare home, registered childcare home, to ensure access for all individuals regardless of disability in their facility. If a provider refuses to provide care for the children with disabilities, providers must document in writing any efforts to provide for a child's need and show why they were not successful or readily available. Any concerns with a child that may require special needs must be communicated to the CDS. Okay, so you as a provider, you can only tell the parent, there is a program that we have, that CCS has, that you might want to inquire about, but the parent has to come and ask about that program. Okay, the daycare cannot tell them, go and sign up for this program, because it's parent choice again, right? So initiating the inclusion assistance process, it says it's initiated only by the child's parents. So you can only recommend that we have a program that might help them out, right? And the parent has to come on their own, okay? And it cannot be initiated by the childcare provider, obviously. So placing children with disabilities. Parents have the same right to parent choice as other parents. Parents can choose a provider to care for a child with disability, even if provider does not have experience. And then, of course, I work closely with providers who care for children with an inclusion plan. So that is the process of the enrolling children with disability. They do have an inclusion plan. We try to work together to see what's best for the child, what they need in the center. Not every child will qualify. There is some criteria that they have to follow. They have to be participating either with ECI, Social Security, disability, and be part of the special education program with the school district. So that's just to get you to be able to qualify for the program. Once that's done, then we take into consideration everything, the parents interview, the daycare's interview, the observation, and then from there we decide if there is a need and what the need is for. Okay, so confidentiality, all information providers have about children with disabilities is confidential. Information about children with disabilities cannot be given to anyone, either in writing or verbal, without written consent for the parent. Caring for children with disabilities, again, there's an inclusion plan that is developed with the parent, the CDS, and the professionals involved with care, the daycare, and also with the person that they're participating with. It be ECI or the school district or the Social Security, any kind of therapy that they receive. Yes, you have a question.
Miss Priscilla, estaría padrísimo que nos pudieran ustedes proporcionar como una hoja, ¿no? Donde les expliquen a los papás o que nosotros podamos darle a los papás, que ellos tengan esa información, cuál es el proceso para que ellos puedan aplicar para ese servicio. Sí, porque realmente estamos viendo muchos casos en nuestros centros, ¿verdad? Tanto de autismo, tanto de lo que es el challenge behavior, o sea, estamos teniendo bastantes casos, ¿me entiendes? Entonces, a veces las maestras no están tan preparadas, ¿verdad? Para casos así, o sea, a veces en una clase de 15 niños, resulta que hay 3 niños con autismo. Entonces, es bien difícil para las maestras poder llevar una clase con 3 niños, ¿verdad? Que pues tienen que estar más pendientes de ellos. Entonces, estaría muy padre que los papás tuvieran esta información.
Sí, lo que
¿Y
pasa,
con quién se pueden dirigir?
sí,
También.
bueno, por eso le digo yo que usted no más puede recomendarle al papá, ¿verdad? Que hay un programa que pueden aplicar, a ver si ellos califican, y ya es cuestión del papá que venga, porque sí tenemos que tomar en consideración que hay papás que no están muy receptibles aceptan y de que hay una necesidad ahí, ¿verdad? Entonces, nosotros decirle, ve y aplica, pues,
Pero por
no
ejemplo,
sabe
en
cómo.
mi caso, yo hablé con una familia, ¿verdad? Entonces, hace cuenta, ella dice que ha estado marcando. Entonces, dice, a veces no me contestan, a veces me dejan en el teléfono, o sea, que ellos tengan con quién dirigirse, ¿verdad?
Sí,
O sea,
eso es conmigo. Si un papá habla a la línea directa, ellos deben de saber de mandarme esa comunicación para yo hablar con ellos. Y sí, yo tengo que hablar con ellos porque sí hay varias formas que tienen que llenar. No nada más es forma de ellos, es del doctor o ya sea la escuela del distrito. Hay varias formas. Entonces, por eso se le pide que el papá venga y pida esos servicios, ¿verdad? Una, porque pues no sabemos cómo van a reaccionar cuando uno le diga que hay una necesidad ahí y ellos tienen que aceptar de que pues si necesito ayuda, déjame ir a ver dónde puedo agarrar esa ayuda.
Sí, no, de hecho ahorita lo que estamos haciendo, bueno, hemos estado trabajando mucho, bueno, en mi caso, ¿verdad?
Sí.
Con los que son, con el programa de DCI, que también están trayendo un programa, ¿verdad? Para incluir a todos esos niños. Entonces, nos estamos basando con ellos también, pero, o sea, si los papás saben que hay este apoyo por parte de CCS también, pues es mucho más fácil también para nosotros en esa cuestión,
Sí,
en la cuestión de trabajo.
Y como le digo, si usted sabe de alguien y sabe de una mamá que necesita esa ayuda, mándele acá con nosotros, ¿verdad? Pero nomás recomendele que hay un programa que puede aplicar, no sabe si va a ser elegible, pero para que ellos vengan y agarren más información. Sí, gracias.
Can you elaborate a little bit more? What does the inclusion plan?
Yes, so the inclusion plan is anything that you need in your center, and it says, it'll say it in the next slides, but it's for anything that you need in your center as far as to accommodate the child. Okay, maybe you need and minor renovations. It's not like, oh, I need a whole facility, right? It's like maybe you need a ramp, to have accessibility for a child in a wheelchair. Maybe you need some equipment that requires a bigger desk or things like that. Those are small things that you would need that would be covered in your inclusion plan. Okay, I know there is also for an extra adult, right? But that would be up to the provider. The provider has to hire the person. They do need to have some training and things like that. So we give you a rate of 190 for the child, but that's for either you needing another person for the child, or you needing renovation in your center, and minor, again, right? Not like a whole big facility, or any equipment that the child might need, right? Sometimes children have adaptive equipment that also they need, so that would be another thing.
Let me interject here regarding the inclusion plan. Because what I'm hearing is, I think might be a little different. It is when we talk about the inclusion plan and when we talk about the inclusion rates, it's mostly to work with a provider pool that we already have. So let's say when a parent comes and applies, we treat the family as a universal parent. So unless they disclose that the child has, a disability, we will not know. So when the parent decides, I want to take my child to Bertha Millan, so they take, I'm thinking they already spoke to the owner or the director and explained the situation. So your center will say, you all say, well, I do have staff that is trained to handle, for example, a child with autism. Or you might not have that person, or you might want to hire that person. And that's where the inclusion rate comes in. That's when, that evaluation, that request has to come from the parent and say, CCS, I really want to place my child at this facility, and they are asking me, if you all can assist with that inclusion rate. So the parent, we work on that plan, and, we require the forms, certain criteria that has to be met, do the evaluation, and then that's how we come up with the inclusion rate that we can pay to the facility if the director owner agrees. And then you all hire the additional staff to provide those one-on-one services to the child. In addition to that, we provide some resources that you might need, educational materials,
some curriculum to work with a particular child. So, but as far as a program where the parents can come straight and say, I'm gonna apply, and they will direct me to a service provider who has care for this particular population, we don't, because we rely on the pool of providers that we have. So in essence, we would need to survey probably our current pool and see what kind of services do you provide, or maybe what are some of the needs that you have, so we can maybe help you develop or enhance, because you might be interested in being able to care for these children, but you have needs that need to be addressed, maybe some assistance from us, some resources to help us help those families. But basically that's how it works. So there's no particular, so when they come and apply for childcare services, it's like a universal child. Right? It's the same requirements for the family to qualify. Work requirements, age requirements for the child, with the exception that we serve children up to the age of 19 if they have a disability. But then again, depends on your facility, up to what age would you accept it. So just some clarification regarding that. Are there any questions?
One, so then we tell the parents about the CBS and just to come and check it out. But I think I understood right now that you said that we need to communicate to the parents to come and ask for that inclusion.
Not necessarily.
Only to come and ask you for the CBS and that's it.
Yes, not necessarily, but since this is a way, you know, I'm thinking just in a regular scenario, it could be that you have a fairly new parent, you're taking care of this child, and maybe you notice that the child has certain needs, special needs. And maybe in conversation with the parent tells you, yes, you know, my child, so-and-so, and we're working with CI and this and that. And at that point, if you determine that you may need some help as a provider, you know, you might, you know, let Ms. Rios know, I have this family. And then of course, what Ms. Rios is saying, she's not gonna go back and ask the parent. No. But if you put her on notice and then you tell the parent, you know, there are some resources that, you know, we can work together, kind of like that, you know, it's a sensitive.
Yes.
It's just in the way you communicate.
Parents are very sensitive.
Yes,
We all are.
Sí, entiendo la parte esa, ¿verdad? De que es una, hay que buscar la forma, ¿verdad? Pero, por ejemplo, nosotros que estamos en el programa de Texas School Ready, Texas Racing Star, llevamos lo que es el checklist con los niños, ¿verdad? Entonces, obviamente, si un niño de 3 años, junto que está en la clase con 15 niños más, por ejemplo, ¿verdad? Entonces resulta que ese niño de 3 años no habla, no interactúa con los demás niños, o sea, nosotros nos basamos en el checklist que les damos a los papás. Entonces ahí es donde los papás, o sea, ellos también ya aceptan, ¿me entiendes?, el problema. Entonces, en este caso, por ejemplo, yo hablé con esta mamá y ella le dije, o sea, si tu hijo está en un grupo de 15 niños, le dije, y a mí me interesa que tu niño avance, le dije, si hay un programa donde yo pueda, o sea, donde ella pueda aplicar para que le ayuden, para yo poder contratar otra maestra que esté específicamente con esos niños, para que esos niños puedan avanzar. O sea, ese es el motivo de mis preguntas, ¿verdad? ¿Por qué? Porque realmente en un checklist tú te das cuenta lo que los niños pueden hacer y lo que no pueden hacer en su, o sea, en lo que es la clase, en la casa, porque también se las damos, llénamela tú en la casa, a ver qué es lo que el niño hace en su casa y ahí se dan cuenta, o sea, y ahorita después de la pandemia pues tenemos muchos problemas así, ¿por qué? Porque los niños están más retraídos que antes.
Y eso es lo que les pedimos, ¿verdad? Que como providers, ustedes como están completando sus listas y están, ¿cómo se dice?, haciendo un assessment de lo que está pasando con las poblaciones que sirven. Ahí es la comunicación con sus IDs y ríos para decirle, ya tengo esta situación, pero también la comunicación debe venir de del parent de pedir ese rate. Porque al final del día, la manera como nos basamos para aprobar esos rates es, se determina en la condición del niño y si amerita, ¿verdad? Esos costos. Parece que de otra mano, ¿sí?
So, just to clarify, children are coming into our facility and like you said, their application is universal. But then we do developmental screenings of the children. They're already in our program and we do the developmental screenings and we see that there is a concern in the child's development. From there, we encourage the referral to an outer agency for further intervention. If that is the case and the child qualifies for further intervention and they have a diagnosis, then at that time we contact Ms. Rios and then the rates will change for that family, or that's not the case?
No, that's not the case. The case, the parent still has to come, apply for the service, right, for that need. And then it would be, of course, an observation made, your input, the parents' interview, and then how are they being helped? And then we base ourselves on all that and then see what the need is. And then we will check if it's approved or not.
Tenemos una pregunta allá atrás, a ver, Miss.
I believe yesterday there was an email sent by the city of Laredo, and it came in with a referral form for providers for the daycare to go ahead and give to the parents, because there's going to be a free screening on March the 18th for like anybody is open, I guess, to the public, but they did send us the referral form. I mean, I told my teachers and the other directors on the other side, like, go ahead and post it out there, right? So the parents can have that information, but like, do not, confront any parent and say, because I mean, we know the child that doesn't sit while the other ones sit, and the ones that don't crawl when the other ones are crawling, or the ones that are not talking when everybody is, or not potty trained when everybody else is, but sometimes, if the parent is in denial, or if the parent entiende, porque la mamá tiene que aceptarlo para poder ayudar a su hijo, pero porque si no, if they don't accept it, then how can we? So I mean, I told the teachers, my other directors, post it on site and then let them know about this free screening that is gonna be open to the public, but it's, I mean, we do have the report form, because I sent it out. But, I mean, I can approach the parent and because we do see it. I mean, I have 4 pre-K classrooms with 17, and sometimes I taught it like at 19, I have to transfer and everything, but I do have UISD come drop off children with disabilities and everything to my centers, but I didn't know about this. I mean, it's very hard for my pre-K teachers to,
Yes,
but we try to. I mean, we do have the 3 strikes you're out, but I'm talking about the aggressive, situations, because some are very aggressive. But I was just gonna, let you know on that one that I think it came yesterday. And I do have a referral form, so maybe I can pass it on.
Can you share that information with us so we can send this information to all the parents?
Yes, I believe I have a picture, because we have a, a group chat with the teachers. But I'll go ahead and send it to you all. Because it's gonna be on March the 18th, and it does say about that, if they have a developmental delay and everything, so that I guess, to be able to get help.
Yeah, we can send letters to the parents and also post this on our Facebook page.
Yes, I'll send it to you.
Sí, nada más para terminar de entenderle ahí porque me perdí. Los niños que nosotros tenemos con determinadas situaciones, ¿necesitan ser CCS para solicitar este apoyo?
Sí,
Bueno, sí. Porque, bueno, uno tiene de todo, ¿verdad? Y no todos son CCS.
Sí, porque nosotros nada más pagamos a los que salen
Ya.
Bueno, déjenme aclarar una cosa, es que esos inclusion rates en realidad son para asistir a los providers. So, si hay un provider que dice, esta familia, yo necesito ocupar staff y con el pago del reimbursement rate que me dan para esta familia no es suficiente. Allí es donde se pide ese inclusion rate. O sea, el resource es para que el provider pueda expandir o proveer esa asistencia a la familia que lo necesita, a esa en particular. Y pues viene por medio de un referral, ¿verdad? De CCS. Por eso, si usted tiene niños privados, ¿verdad? Pues hay otras agencias que, como dijo Miss Melba, pueden, como la ciudad y todo eso. Hay otros programas disponibles en la comunidad. También está Vocational Rehab, que sirve niños con discapacidades. Hay muchos recursos en la comunidad. Pero todo esto es para decirles que nosotros desde el punto de vista de reimbursements and inclusion rates, eso es lo que significa. Tratar de ayudar, si ustedes están en una situación donde ustedes quieren ayudar a esa familia, pero necesitan recursos, puede ser no necesariamente el rate, puede ser una rampa que necesiten o puede ser algo, ¿verdad? Ese es el tipo de ayuda que hacemos. Ahora, cuando las familias, cuando digo que aplican universal, es porque cuando las familias vienen a aplicar, nosotros, o CCS, ¿verdad? Acuérdense, CCS está procesando las aplicaciones, determina la elegibilidad de la familia, no las necesidades. Eso ya lo van a ver hasta cuando ustedes empiecen a trabajar con los niños y empiezan a ver estas situaciones y ya es como se descubre. Pero inicialmente cuando las familias vienen, si la familia no hace disclosure, no dice si los niños necesitan algo en especial, pues no podemos saber, ¿verdad? Entonces, ese es el summary.
But what is the process of that for a parent?
So they come and they pick up the application here, and then they fill out a parent interview form, and then they also get the forms filled out by whoever they're participating with. Let's just say, for example, the child is with PCI, then one of their therapists that they're working with has to fill out that form as well. And then also the daycare will provide another a written document of how they're doing it to help out the child. And then from there, we do an observation, and then we consider all the information to see what the need is, if there is one.
Will we have to provide that extra person in there?
Yes, the provider does. Yes, we don't hire anybody if you needed that extra person. Okay, so, and just to go back with that, inclusion assisted rate is used for additional staff and necessary training, necessary equipment, and minor renovations, as we said. It's not to be used for counseling or therapy or medical services, because if the child is already participating with something, they're already getting those services. So we don't use that, okay? Resources, any adaptive equipment is based on the assessment, right? Adaptive equipment is used by the child with the disability and follows the child with where there is a change in provider. Okay, so if they have any kind of equipment that they need, and they happen to move out of your center, that equipment follows the child. It doesn't stay in your center. Okay. So determining payment rates to providers with PCS referred children. Board max reimbursement rates. Workforce Solutions for South Texas sets the maximum rates that providers can be reimbursed for services to child care contractor. Okay, reimbursement rates are based on the following: referred children according to if you're a licensed center, licensed home, registered home, the age of children you serve, Texas Rising Star level, if you have a full-time, part-time, and if you're Texas school ready, right? So all those different things are considered into your rate. Provider payment rates. You do have to sign a rate addendum, right? And it's they are based on the provider's published rates. And then, so how that works is you submit your rate to me, and then we put it in a calculation sheet, and then I provide you with what is going to be paid according to our board max rates, right? And we pay you the lesser amount of the two, and I'll explain that in the next slide. Registration, supply fees, enrollment fees will also be prorated to a daily rate and added to daily rates. Single rate for full-time and single rate for part-time for each category. Based on the type of care authorized, whether it's full day, part day. And then there's a little note at the bottom that says how we handle the full day unit of service is from 6 to 12 hours. And the part day unit of service is fewer than 6 for part-time, okay? So determining your payment rate to providers with CCS referred children. Okay, the provider will not be paid more than the established maximum reimbursement rate, even if your published rate is higher than the max reimbursement rate. So there's a little chart there just so you can see if the rate is $15.81 and our board max rate is $18, we pay you the lesser amount, which would be $15.81, right? And then vice versa, if your rate is $18 and our board max rate is 15, then we'll pay you the 15 because that's the lesser amount. Okay, just so that you know how we do the board max rate. Okay, and then enhancement, maximum rates. And then of course, Texas Rising Star, if you're a 2-star rating, you get a 5% higher, 7% for 3-star and 9% for 4-star. And there also is another reimbursement rate for being Texas full rate. So it just depends on what level and what your center is. Okay, charging the difference between the board max rates and our published rates. Providers cannot charge CCS parents the difference in the reimbursement amount received from CCS and the provider published rate. Okay, so just so you can keep that in mind, right? We can't charge the difference to make up for that reimbursement rate. Changing rates. If provider changes their published rates, a provider agreement has to be amended, must be negotiated and signed before your new rates will be effective. Okay, you do have to submit documentation 30 days prior to the effective date. Transportation. When providing transportation, provider will not be reimbursed for transportation fees. Transportation fees are the responsibility of the parent apart from the child care contractor assessed fee. So we don't provide any transportation reimbursement. Does anybody have questions on that, the rates? No? Okay. Provider responsibilities and reporting requirements. Collecting parent share of cost and other child care funds. So providers are responsible to collect the parent share of cost on the first day of the month or before initial care is provided, okay? Because sometimes you get children that is after the first of the month, right? So you do need to pick up or collect that parent share of cost before you're providing the service. Okay, then with that, you need to, providers must report the non-payment of parent share of cost by the 5th of the month. And then those children that are enrolled after the 1st of the month, you need to report the parent share of cost within the 5 business days. So let's just say the child entered on the 15th, then and they haven't paid by the 5th of that day, of the following days, you need to report it the 5th day. Okay. Very important, and of course to the CCS email. The amount assigned as a parent share of cost will be deducted from your reimbursement rate. So there's an example there that says, let's just say your rate is $15 and within the month is $300 that you're going to be reimbursed. But within those $300, the parent's copay is $100, then the $200 remaining is what we cover. Okay, so some of it comes from the parents, some of it comes from CCS. Of course, there's some parents that might not even have a parent share of cost. Okay, and all that is of course stated on your 2450, right? How much they have to pay per month and things like that. So reporting absences. As of April 1st, 2021, Workforce Solutions for South Texas mailed out a notification advising that the POS device will no longer be used and that the providers were required to manually track attendance. Children are allowed 40 absences per eligibility period. Providers must report 5 consecutive absences on the next business day. Okay, there's 1 report per 5 consecutive absences. And if you click, I think there's a chart there. There's a little chart there, and I just wanted to show you an example because I know when I go to the center, most of you have questions on those. So let's just say that the child is absent Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, which is the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. Then you can report them either that day, the weekend if you're working, or you have Monday to report it, right? That's within the week. But if it falls within a break in the week, you have them absent Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Of course, you're closed the weekend, right? And then you have them absent Monday and Tuesday, then you would need to report them the following Wednesday. Okay, I know there was with the break in Christmas, there was days where it was like 2 holidays and then the weekend and then another 2 holidays and then the child would come back. If they were absent 3 days before that and then the whole break was there and then they were absent another 2 days, that had to have been reported like the next 5th day coming back. Okay, so those are just examples.
If the center is closed, it's not considered an absence.
Yes, if the center is closed, it's not considered an absence, okay? But you do have to follow, and one important, also, you need to keep track of your end of month to the beginning of the month. Sometimes we just want to see like the week, right? I know it's a lot to keep up with, but sometimes they're absent the last 2 days of the month and then they're absent the first 3 days of the month. Those are 5 consecutive absences that also need to be reported. Okay, and just to clarify, it's 1 report for every 5 absences. Okay.
Let me just add in here, we are still having some issues with the absences, okay? So if your facility submits like 5 reports or 1 child has been absent, let's say already for 3 weeks and you haven't reported it and then you submit all of those reports, you're going to get a visit from us. So because that's telling us that you are not reporting them accordingly. So, you know, we really need to close in already on this absence situation. It really got out of control there for some time. We're trying to pull it back together. So if you're not reporting it and then you're going to send us 3 or 4 because the child has been gone, that doesn't mean you complied. Okay, so you will be getting a visit from us. Any questions on that? All right, thank you.
Okay, so it leads us to our next bullet. Failure to comply with reporting requirements can result in an SIA. Okay, consequences for failure to need improvements, temporary withhold of payment, denying payment, suspension, not renewing, terminating of your agreement, discontinuing referral of children to the provider. Okay, very important to submit those on the 5th of the occurrence of the absence. Okay.
One more thing on the same note with the parent share of costs to be submitted also timely by the 5th. If you all make arrangements with the parents, that's going to be on you. There's nothing that we're gonna be able to do that. So if you allow them to pay on the 15th or pay you in 2 payments, we strongly encourage that you don't do that, that you follow the guidelines and have them pay by that time of the month. And again, if we are not receiving those, that's going to also be a violation of your reporting requirements. Questions? Thank you.
Okay, during your initial referral, children receiving childcare services are absent and parents don't call. Parents are required to notify the provider by telephone or in person if the children are absent from care. If the parent does not notify the provider within 3 consecutive absence days of children, referral providers must call CCS to report the absence. So again, we go back to if you receive the enrollment, they haven't been there by the 3rd day, you do need to let us know so that we can reach out to the parent and see what's the case, what's going on. And that would be by telephone. You could call FMS department or send an email to our CCS email, and then that way they forward it to the FMS department. If the child care contractor has to end a new child's enrollment before the child begins care at the facility, the provider will be paid for any days from the time the child was scheduled to begin care to to the date enrolled and terminated, as stated on the TWC Form 2450 and Child Care's authorization for child care enrollment. So suspension of enrollment. Sometimes children need to have a suspension of enrollment, and these are the following reasons why. The child must spend time with a parent on a court-ordered visit. A teen parent does not have transportation to bring a child to care during school. A parent lives too far from the facility to bring the child to care during breaks in education or employment. For example, college semester breaks are kind of longer, right? So sometimes they won't be able to take them to the daycare. Or district employees usually have a long break and might not be able to take the child for those reasons. Okay, but of course, as long as all that is documented and letting us know, that way we can also do our process where we have to either suspend service or whatever, we would take action. Child care service staff will authorize the child's suspension, terminate the child's enrollment, or place the child on suspended enrollment. Okay, so with one of those situations that they're gonna be out for 2 weeks or more, we do have a process that we have to follow, so it would be best to notify us once you know that the parent is telling you, well, I won't be able to bring them for 2 weeks, let us know. Okay.
But even when the parent has, if they need to be out for 2 weeks, for 2 consecutive weeks, the parent can still have an active referral. And let's say that the child doesn't go to your facility for those 10 days. You will need to submit your absence report. Because the parent continues to be eligible for services, it's just a temporary situation due to one of the items listed, and those are allowable here. So the parent continues to be eligible, it's just that they might not be able to take the child. So we just request from you that you submit your absence reports. And then when the child is back, everything's fine and dandy. Sometimes parents do not want to waste their days in absences, so that's when they might decide to suspend. And at that point, then you're not liable to hold that spot for the child, unless you talk to the parent and the parent is 100% sure that they're going to come back, and you agree to wait for them. But other than that, you're not liable for holding the spot. And because we're not going to receive payment while the case is suspended.
And that goes to the next one where it says the provider is not paid for the periods of time the child is on suspended enrollment and may choose to enroll another child in that space. When the enrollment suspension period is over, the child is guaranteed re-enrollment and may be placed with the original provider if space is available or with another provider. Okay, so like Ms. Millan said, you don't have to save the space. If you have the space, then great. If not, they would just be moved to another center. Billing and payment. So billing schedules. Billing is processed on a bi-weekly system. Schedule is posted on the website. There's a link to the schedule. You receive a declaration of service from the FMS department, right? And it requires that you review your report for any discrepancies and that you report it to the child care email or call FMS, right? Providers are required to obtain and review the 2450 and contact CCS for any questions that you have or something that you need clarified on that 2450. Payments to your child care contractor or providers, parent share of costs, or what we
very important slide has to do with fraud. We've had some issues in the past with detecting fraud or suspicion of fraud. In the case where fraud is substantiated, your agreement will be terminated immediately. So if you don't comply with the SIA, that can be also a reason for quick termination. So the guidelines are very strict and we are just trying to enforce them. We need to be good stewards of the funds that we are responsible for carrying out. Like Priscilla mentioned, there's not going to be an opportunity for a payment schedule if you do owe money that you were paid for a child that was no longer in your facility and you didn't report them absent. That is very suspicious also for fraud. And you will be expected to pay within 30 days. If you do not comply, then that amount that is due will be reduced from your next payment. Want to make sure that is something that we are holding very serious. Yes, ma'am.
I want the bullet that says received childcare services during the period in which the parent or child was not eligible for services. How will we know if they're not eligible for services?
If they're not going anymore,
Oh, okay.
they're not, obviously, they're not entitled to be receiving any services. Right, but it's something that,
Like, if we have a child attending and going and everything and.
right, you're not expected there, but if you have a parent and the parent left town with the child, they're no longer eligible for services and providers not reporting them as being absent, then again, that's going to raise an eyebrow as suspicious why you're getting payment for a child that has not been there and you're not reporting that they're not there. So pretty much that would be it. Okay, are there any questions on this? It's really serious and we don't want to terminate any agreements. We want to be able to work with you. The next slides is basically going to talk about CCR, which you are more familiar probably than we are on that. So we'll stop the presentation with this. We do have resources available to help you to get you to comply with the reporting requirements. Are there any questions on this? Okay, so we can continue with the agenda right now and so the next bullets that you see on the agenda, I think that we can skip them because we just went over them on the next items on the agenda. We're going to skip them because basically we just went over them already, which is the reporting of the absences, the declaration of services, payment proofs. Okay, so parents' eligibility redetermination. It's a parent's responsibility to come in and give us the documents, and we will be reaching you like 20 days before the end of the termination, right? So that you can contact the parent and tell them your services are about to be terminated. You need to contact CCS if you will not continue receiving that. If not, then they're probably going to private pay. So we are making up the payment proof. It's really important that you review them. It's your facility. You know those children. You know they're there or not. So the notion that you didn't know that you were getting paid, for X amount of months for a child that has not been going is really not valid because we do give you already those payment proofs. So please take the time to make sure that we are paying you accordingly. Or if someone is missing, also we need to know that. And again, it has to be by center, so don't be transferring the children within multiple centers. They need to come out the way that we refer them, by site. Talked about absences, the job form. Has there been any issues with those absence, the job forms? So even if you have not received a termination code from CCS, you continue to report absences. So even if the parent says, I'm not coming anymore, you let us know. We will do our paperwork, but you will continue to report them absence until we give you that termination code. The transfers, I think I'm taking over you, Noemi, I'm sorry. The transfer is a courtesy, 14-day notice. If a child will be, a parent request to transfer for whatever reason that we cannot disclose to you. If they decide to transfer their child to another facility, then we will give you that 14-day notice that you know they're going to be transferring. And they might stop going, but you will still get paid up to those 14 days. In some cases, there are reasons to do an immediate transfer, and we reserve the right to do that. And that is a determination that is made here with CCS with an interview with the parent. So at that point, then we do not have to give you that 14-day notice. Okay? Please understand that terminations are not transfers. If a child is terminated today, we do not need to give you a 14-day notice for that termination. Termination is end of care. So, we don't expect providers are expecting maybe to give them 14 days. That's not the case. If we know in advance, then definitely we will let you know that the child will be ending at a future date. But whatever reason they end today, then we will send you that termination code effective immediately, and we will not give you more notice than that. Any questions? Okay, so you all have the agenda. So what we're gonna do right now is we're just gonna go over quickly, it won't take long. The Texas Rising Star requirement. So as you know, it's mandatory, right? And we have been talking about this already for several years. We did encourage you all to try to become already TRS prior to the deadlines. And so now we are at the implementation stage. So we do have some background. Okay, so this is a House bill that introduced the mandatory Texas Rising Stars for anybody receiving subsidies from child care services. Next slide. So we just want to give you a recap of what has happened since the implementation, okay? So the implementation date was October the 3rd. And at that point, we had 120 CCS contracted providers. From those 120, 26 were TRS certified, and 94 providers met entry-level designation, and we'll refer to them as ELDs. So what that meant is that by that point, you needed to meet a threshold with licensing that did not exceed 75 points. So we are really happy and proud of all our facilities because everybody was able to meet that entry-level designation. So at this point, you're either a TRS or you are an ELD. All right, so in the first quarter after the implementation, TRS began to work with 15 of those 94 assessing. And the outcome of those 15, only 13 were certified. And what we wanted to illustrate here is the challenges that the TRS team is having with some providers. Non-responsiveness. If you do not respond, then we're going to set a timeline. If you do not respond to the TRS team, then we're going to move your assessment to the last quarter of implementation. So don't delay when you already have that call from TRS. The next slide will give you, this is the second quarter, which is the quarter that we're on right now. We have 16 that are being assessed. And we are, and from the 60, this is projections because we're still in it, that only 14 will be certified. And again, challenges, there's some unforeseen circumstances with some providers, which is why we encourage you to do it quickly in case something should occur later. And again, non-responsive. So what's happening with, what is gonna happen with those providers, which we already have 4, they're going to be bumped all the way down to the last portion of the assessment. The next slide, please. So this will tell you, indicate now just how we will be, or the TRS team will be working for the third quarter
20 ELDs will be assessed, fourth quarter, another 20. So by the end of the first year of implementation, we are expecting, if everything goes good, that 55 will already be certified. Again, everything is subject to, perfectly everybody responding and going through the process. So on the next slide, then we'll have the final 27 providers that need to be assessed. And we'll do the fifth quarter, 20 of them. And then we have the sixth quarter, which is January of next year, to assess the final 7. Okay, and then all of those that were not compliant or were not responsive will be assessed during this time. Okay, so it's really important that you work with your TRS designee already to get you already certified. Okay, because we wanted to show you it is going really, really fast. And so sometimes there's different challenges that we have. The next slide. This we just received yesterday by TWC. So effective April the 1st, all the LEDs, which means if you're still not certified, we need to do another evaluation of your threshold in 6 months. Okay, so by the first review will be in October. So if you are not TRS yet, we're going to run another report, the scoring report, and if at this time you exceed the 75 points, we will need to terminate your agreement. And we will give the parents 30 days to choose another eligible CCS provider. So it's really important that you maintain your threshold that does not go over 75, because you won't be considered at this time anymore for assessing. Okay. Then we have another important deadline that we do want to remind you of, that by March 31st, a year from now, if you're not eligible for TRS certification as per TRS guidelines, then the referrals will stop. We will not be referring any more families. And then you will have 6 months, which is till September 2024, to meet the TRS certification eligibility. This is just to get you in, okay? To get you in. At the end of the 6 months you do not meet, then the provider agreement will be terminated. If at the end of the 6 months you do meet the certification eligibility, then you will be given a final 3 months, December 2024, to become TRS certified. And that would be like the last deadline. If at that time you do not become TRS, then your agreement will be terminated. Okay, so we just wanted to give you like a quick review of how fast it's going, how important it is for you to communicate with the TRS team and work with them, and try to get you there. We're trying to get everybody in as fast as we can. Any questions on the schedule? If you are having some issues with maybe with licensing, reach out to your TRS team. If there's something we can help you, we have funding to get you to the level. If there's something that's missing that you're being cited for, or that CCR has cited you for, then maybe we can help you with some of those resources to get you up to get you to comply. Okay. So this rule here, once you become TRS, then we will not be doing this reevaluation. So we go back to the prior screen. We have the last 27 and the ones that are going to be moved in this last quarter. These are going to be the ones that are going to be reevaluated for the threshold, because this rule it will become effective April the 1st. So if by April the 1st, you're still not TRS and you're going to be monitored, then the last 27 and then those daycares or those facilities that were not in compliance, this is where we're going to do another reevaluation on that point system. That makes sense? Okay. And then I think the next slides just kind of show how TRS determines the
the designation, which again will be done in October, and then it'll be done again in April. Next slide. Gorgeous ladies here willing to work with you already. The TRS team is here in case you do have any questions, any program related specific questions, they're all here available. But we wanted to provide you with this recap, see if you all have any, and if you do have challenges, then please talk to TRS team to see how we can work with you. Any questions, comments, or concerns? All right, so I'll pass it back to Noemi.
Thank you, Ms. Barrera, for all that wonderful information and important information. So that was the last item. On your agenda, you will find the emails and direct lines for your TRS venture assessors. At this time, we're going to go ahead and open up the floor for any questions or comments if you have any. Okay, I'll take your silence as a no. Our next meeting will be tentatively scheduled for the last Saturday of April. And we'll be sending out those notices. Always check your constant contacts, your emails for an email from constant contact. One last reminder, we sent out an email. We sent out a constant contact last week. I sent out an email yesterday for the All Together for Children. They have the Texas Leadership Academy. They have 2 sessions, one on Monday, one on Tuesday. So you can sign up for those 2 sessions. We will be handing out the provider handbook as you leave the building. It is 1 handbook per center, and you'll be signing an acknowledgement that you received the provider handbook. Okay, I want to thank everybody for coming, for making the time to come on a Saturday and receive all this important information.
And we'll be posting the handbook also on our website after this meeting. It'll be available there as well.
Okay, so then I'm going to go ahead and let you all go and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you for coming.